I'm gonna stray a little off topic right off the bat because today I also filmed a collaboration with Slasher Pepper, and the way that you guys just are not ready for what happens in that collab, I about lost my mind at the surprises that Roger had in store for me, so that's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to spoil anything. I think that video will probably be coming out sometime this week, but you just keep an eye out, okay? I'll link his channel down below so you can subscribe, you can keep an eye out. As for today's topic, Don Mancini has done it. After 7 Child's Play films, he's made it to TV, and we are here to talk about season 1 of Chucky. Don't come into the comments telling me that there are actually 8 films, because I'm talking about Don Mancini's cinematic universe. Not the remake that I have intensely mixed feelings about. We're gonna talk about that soon though, because I'm gonna do a comparison on the original versus the remake. So subscribe if you're not already. We have good stuff coming out soon. I don't know why I said we. I have good things coming out soon. This is my channel. But for today, we are first gonna get into some fun facts about the show. Then I'll give you my general spoiler-free thoughts like on the style, the acting. I'll get into a little bit of my thoughts on the story without actually getting into the story itself. Then we're gonna get into the spoiler section, and the first part of this section will be the character breakdown, so I'll talk about some of the side characters, and then of course all the main characters. And then finally, we will have our juicy, nummy, wummy little plot breakdown. I'll get into all of my spoiler-filled thoughts about the progression of the show, the story, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of everything. And there will be some fun behind-the-scenes, fun facts-related info thrown in as I cover the plot as well. But let's kick it off with some fun facts. I just tipped my cowboy hat. Mother and daughter characters Mayor Cross and her daughter Lexi are played by real-life mother and daughter Olivia Allen Lind and Barbara Allen Woods. Also, this first season has it slowly dipped down lower? Is this happening right now? It's just gotten slowly lower? How awkward. Stay. This first season takes place approximately 2 weeks after the ending of Cult of Chucky, which is the last film of the franchise. However, this is a bit of an inconsistency within the world of the franchise because in Cult of Chucky, where it ends, it's snowing. It's fully winter time, but then this first season of the show takes place in the fall. This show also takes place in Hackensack, New Jersey, which is where Alex Vincent, who played the original Andy Barkley and returns for this show, went to high school. And I think that he grew up there as well, but I'm not sure. All I could find is that he graduated from Hackensack High School in 1999, which whenever that year comes up, I have to remind you, that's the year that I was born. It was also the year that the Blair Witch Project was born, so just great year all around. Also, the Chucky doll that they used in the show was often puppeteered by several different people at once, and it weighed about 30 pounds, like a small child. Mancini said, though, that because there were all these different puppeteers who were so intimately familiar with their work and the robotics and everything like that, he actually got to treat the doll as its own separate actor almost. So he could say things like, Chucky is giving me a little bit too much energy, can we just dial it back there? So things like that. And this team of puppeteers was led by a man named Tony Gardner, who Mancini said I think has been doing all the puppeteering for the last 10 years. Also, a main purpose of this show is for Don Mancini to explore his own past because the lead is a young gay artist with a very traditionally minded father. So we definitely get a lot of insight into Don Mancini's upbringing and the kind of things that he struggled with. Another thing that Mancini said that I found really interesting is he feels like as he's gotten older, he has a better understanding of what would make an effective death. I guess having the life experience and also growing older would probably help him to realize what would really get under people's skin. And some really horrific things do happen in this show. And when those horrific things happen, the practical effects of this show absolutely go off. I think it's so lovely getting all these practical gore effects in today's day and age. I think they're really making a comeback. But we have a lot of hot gossip to get into before I get on to all of the kills and the plot, so now I'm gonna move on to all my spoiler-free thoughts. First, to talk about the style, the cinematography is great. It's grade A limited series material. I'm talking, HBO Max level of quality. It doesn't look made for TV. They do a lot of really fun experimental looking kind of stuff. There's this really cool shot that they have in the bedroom where there's a bunch of different candles that are lit. They also utilize some other famous shots and make them look really nice within the show. The opening titles are also magnificent. I love the collage of Chuckies within Chucky. There are also some other pretty subtle homages to different horror works like The Shining, Halloween 2, and many, many more. It's also extremely self-referential because you get a lot of pieces of Charles Lee Ray's life filled in. There are also great little touches and attention to detail that are just scattered everywhere, like on the previously on fucking Chucky. I love the way that Chucky announces it very much as himself. It's just little things like that that I adore. Because most people just go, and previously on, and they try to be all serious, but I love that they did it in character for Chucky. Speaking of characters, they bring back all of the classic favorite faces, including Kyle, which I was so happy about because she's probably one of my favorite people from the entire franchise, besides, of course, Jennifer Tilly and Brad Dourif. I think this was definitely the right move to kick off a new generation of people loving Chucky because, of course, you have the old-timers that are coming in to see Jennifer Tilly and Brad Dourif, and then you have all these teenagers that are now involved. And our main man, Brad Dourif, I can't believe he's still coming back. He's 71 years old, and he's still lending us his wonderful voice. In so many other franchises, you can have a different man behind the mask because in so many of them, they don't really speak. But then you have Chucky, who you don't even see him on screen physically as a person for more than a few minutes of the whole franchise, but still Brad Dourif is the Chucky. His voice is so iconic that even though you only ever see him as just a doll on screen, he's still irreplaceable. So all the old actors that came back, they were all such a joy. I enjoyed almost every single moment that they were on screen. But then we also had quite a few fresh faces, as I just mentioned, and so I want to talk about their acting a little bit. To start off with what I appreciate, I love that they have 14-year-old characters who are actually played by 14-year-olds. We've talked about this on my channel before, how they literally will quite often have actual 30-year-olds who are playing 18-year-olds. Like in 13 Reasons Why, he's 30. He is 30. And then in a show like Vampire Diaries, you have this man who is supposed to be 17, I think. And then this man who is meant to be like 15. When I watch this show, I'm like, oh my god, they're babies. But then I'm like, oh wait, no, my brain has just been conditioned to think that teenagers look like 30-year-olds because of shows like Riverdale. But no, they are children and they actually look like children, which is something that a lot of people in Hollywood seem to struggle to come to terms with. All that to say though, their acting isn't the best. I know that with TV, there must be a lot of time constraints and getting the lines just right might be really difficult. And I know that I'm about to sound like a grandma, but these kids mumble. I don't want to hold too much against them though, because they have about 10 years less of experience than other grown-ass adults that get cast as teenagers. But at the same time, there's so much talent out there in the world. So I wish that different people had been cast maybe as the leads. I just wasn't crazy about them. And I think that that's the main reason why I wasn't as fond of the show as everybody else seems to be, because I was really annoyed by some of the young actors' habits. And this is literally nothing personal against the kids. They are all much more talented than I will ever be. These are just pet peeves of mine, like this is a me issue. Number one, a few of them are very breathy with their dialogue, and that's one of my number one pet peeves. I think that some actors think that it emphasizes their line delivery, but it's just kind of gross to me. Because imagine if I sat here and I was like, hit that like button, it really helps my channel. I don't know why, but there are some YouTubers that I watch that I enjoy, but whenever they start doing that, it just comes off really disingenuous to me. Like, why are you forcing so much air to your lungs? And that doesn't apply if you're out of breath for another reason. I'm not a monster. But number two, another thing that I don't like is when actors have a recurring face. Jake is constantly making this face. He could be mad, sad, shocked, whatever, doesn't matter, same face. I realize this is very nitpicky, but it's a me problem. It's really nothing against these kids. But I think the reason why it just completely takes me out of the show is because they're habits that I've seen other actors have. That didn't stop me from liking a few of those characters though, but we'll get to that in due time. Story-wise, I obviously can't get into much during this portion of the video, but without saying too much, I did really like the story. I think it's amazing how many funky, different directions Mancini has taken this franchise, and now that it's a TV show, there's a lot more room for creativity. I also think that they managed to up the stakes really well. And by bringing in all of Chucky's old enemies, then the stakes were raised for Chucky as well, not just the protagonist. So all of the dynamics that played out were really fun to see. Especially because I think that almost everyone got to share a scene together, all of the newcomer teenagers and all of the old characters. The show was just a lot of fun. I can completely see why it's number 2 behind Squid Game. I just unfortunately didn't love it as much as everybody everybody else did. It was pretty amazing. There's a ton of fan service, a lot of questions, like long time questions that people have had about Charles Lee Ray have been answered. Chucky also gets a crazy new look. A lot of the lore of the world of Chucky gets expanded on. It's also an important historical landmark in terms of LGBTQ+ representation. I honestly can't think of anything else that I've personally seen where two 14-year-old boys in a show are actually 14 years old in real life and they get to have a romance. That was something that was really cool to see, and I mean, I appreciate so much about the show, the style, the story, everything. I think the new kids just got under my skin a little bit too often. But that being said, I am really excited to see how those characters develop in season 2, and I think their performances will be a lot stronger in the coming seasons. Without giving anything away, the way that the season ends, you could definitely see how there could be more story to be told, and I'm really excited about that new direction because I think that by now they have greenlit it for season 2. Also thematically, I really enjoyed what they explored, and I hope that there is more of that in the future. They explored how, despite what you may think, you probably don't really know what's going on in your children's lives. They explored the LGBT themes of acceptance, of growing up with a family that disapproves of that, what it means to live in a society that is reluctant to accept that. Lots of good stuff, which I'm afraid that we actually won't get to until we get to our plot breakdown. So to conclude the spoiler-free section, I fully see why a lot of people do love it. I think my main problem was just with the kids because I am a die-hard Chucky fan. I love the franchise. It's definitely within my top 3 of all time, I would say. Chucky is probably without a doubt my favorite villain of all time. I just didn't love the show as much as everybody else did. Still worth watching though, if you haven't seen it, absolutely. But now we're gonna move on to the character portion of the video. We're gonna start just with a couple of side characters because I have a few things to point out. So first of all, we have Lexa Doig, who plays Bree. She is the mother of Junior. The character is whatever, nothing to say there. I just want to point out that this is the final girl from Jason X, one of my favorites of the Friday franchise. It's fun to see a friendly face. That was too many F's in one sentence. Wow. But speaking of friendly faces, the boy, Devon Sawa, he is in this show and he plays not one but 2 characters. There's not much to say about his characters that we won't get into with the plot breakdown, but a lot of you guys know that I'm a really big fan of his work. You guys need to check out the movie Hunter x Hunter. I try to talk about this movie whenever I get the chance. Unbelievable. His performance is great. The ending stuck with me for days. Tangents, sorry. He plays 2 people in this show. As I mentioned, he plays the good twin and the bad twin. And good for him. You know what? Good for them. Good for them that they got Devon Sawa to play not one but 2 characters in this show. What a treat. We're not going to touch on any other side characters though because we have a lot more main characters to get into. So let's discuss returners briefly because a lot of you guys do know how I feel about a lot of them. First up, we have Andy. He is the returner that I care maybe least about because it's kind of weird. His story really intrigues me and I love that he's back and I'm really interested to see how his story plays out, but I just have this disconnect because for some reason he looks nothing at all like he did as a kid to me. So it's amazing that he's still involved since he was a child in 1988, but still when I see him on screen, my brain goes, it's not him though. And also I wish that his character had been given more of an arc, but he's the type of character that would get more of like a 4-season arc rather than a 1-season arc. And he was also only in like 4 episodes. So I'm excited for his future, but up next would be my girl Kyle. She is, like I said, my favorite of the entire franchise besides Tiffany and Chucky. She's still just as badass and she's someone that we haven't seen in the franchise at all since the first movie that she was in. She is in a very, very brief end credit scene though of Cult of Chucky and that's how we knew she was coming back for this show. So what a blessing that we finally get to see what's become of her. I think that both her and Andy have a very reasonable character progression where they have this obsession and the need to take down the Cult of Chucky. Just beautiful writing there. I'm very excited about the future of her character as well. But now we're gonna move on to our lovely Tiffany. She's herself, she's as Tiffany as ever. Sometimes you can't fix crazy, but that's what we need for this show. We need her there to create the drama. Especially with her relationship with Chucky and how back and forth it is. The dichotomy of love and hate between them means that their relationship is so unpredictable, which is again just good writing. Now Nika returns as well alongside Tiffany, but she is also Chucky. This poor girl, I mean maybe she could have had some character development if they did anything anything besides torture her. And I'm mad about what happened to her, but let's save her for later. Last would be our lovely Chucky, who is as Chucky as ever. Don Mancini has nurtured this franchise for the past 30 years to the point where it has some of the most iconic and identifiable horror characters of all time. This is thanks in part to Brad Dourif and his iconic voice. I just have to say a big thank you to Mancini for the continued talent that he brings to his writing, because Chucky is just, he has all the witty one-liners, there's the profanity, the over-the-top ambitious evil plans. He's the character that I know and adore so well. I don't think I need to go on about how wonderful that character is, so let's move on to the kids. Let's start with Devin Evans, who is played by Björgvin Arnarsson. He's definitely my favorite of the kid characters, and I identify with him the most, so that makes sense. He's obsessed with true crime, I love horror, he has a podcast, I also put my opinions on the internet completely unprovoked. He's just sweet, he's a good kid and I like him. Up next would be Teo Briones as Junior. Junior took very unexpected turns for me. I did not think that he was gonna be the one that Chucky ultimately corrupted, but he had one of those good to evil to good character arcs. Kind of a cliched arc where a character gets pulled into the darkness, but then right as they die, they get pulled back into the light. Spoilers for Star Wars, but I call that the Vader arc. Though we don't actually get to see his good origins until the second trilogy, but that's besides the point. Junior was interesting because his circumstances are ultimately what led to him following Chucky. His life was just spinning out of control, and so he wanted to seize control in any way that he could, and so he killed his dad. And so I think he had the most interesting arc of the whole show. Another person who did as well would be Lexi Cross, who is played by Olivia Allen Lind. She starts out as this really horrendous bully, and you kind of see some of her inner life with how her parents treat her, so her being a bully kind of makes sense. And I really fell for it because I was buying into the fact that they were setting us up to hate her so that her death would be this really big payoff. Because I was like, man, they are making it very easy for me to root for her to just kick it. But despite how truly awful she was in the beginning, she actually did come around. I think it might have happened a little too quickly, but I do like the whole unlikely allies thing they set up between her and Jake. And speak of the devil, our main character, Jake Wheeler, who is played by Zachary Arthur. This kid was going through it. I feel for his circumstances, I really do, but I did not like him. And I think it's literally just the faces that he was making. It made me so frustrated because all of these crazy events were going on and happening around him, happening to him, but he reacted the same exact way every single time. He has one mode, and it's like, damn it, kid, I want to feel for you. I really do. And there are moments where I do feel for him. The relationship he has with Devin is really sweet. I like that he went from a total rigid, nervous wreck around him to fully embracing himself and his relationship with Devin. Devin didn't go through that same arc because he lived in a much more accepting home. He didn't carry the baggage of the fear of being literally assaulted by his parents. That was really nice to see too, because a lot of times when you have a gay character in the show, it's kind of like the sob story. Like with Jake, how everything is just terrible because his father doesn't accept him. I think it's really important when loving and accepting homes are represented too, because it's like, yeah, that's how you should do it, parents. Anyway, we're starting to get a little bit into plot territory with that, so, I mean, should we? Should we do the plot breakdown? No. Yes, episode 1, Death by Misadventure. The first episode introduces Jake as this struggling young gay artist with a drunk of a father who doesn't support pretty much any part of his identity. Side note, as soon as I saw him destroying his son's doll sculpture, I was like, yeah, he's gonna be the first one to go. Lexi and Junior are then also introduced as these popular assholes who bully Jake, but luckily Jake has a teacher in his corner who kind of tells her off. Ihr seht das Ei. Sorry, I was gonna lose my streak on Duolingo, so I gotta do a German lesson real quick. Sie hört die Ente. Wann schreibst du? Maybe I should have talked about this teacher because she did tell Lexi off and she was one of the only characters that Jake had in his corner. Showing her interference as well, I think is really important because I think she did the right thing. She was kind of a moral compass of the show. Anyways, the most important plot points of the first episode are definitely Chucky introducing himself to Jake and then Chucky killing Jake's father. Fun fact, Don Mancini has a fear of being electrocuted, so he wanted to include that in the show. Also, they had to shove a bunch of pipes into Devin Sawa's outfit to create the effect of the smoke coming out of his body. Another fun fact about this episode is that you can see Tiffany walk around the yard sale because she is the one that dropped the doll off. Also, the voice on the phone when Jake gets called by someone who's interested in buying Chucky is the voice of Andy Barclay. But I learned something that was really interesting about this episode that really helped me to get into the mind of Don Mancini. While they were filming during the scene where Jake gets hit by his father, they got really into it, but then they called a break for lunch during the middle of shooting that scene. And to get back into the headspace of that scene, Zachary Arthur went to Mancini and he asked him if he would tell him the real story of what happened that inspired that scene. So he told him what really happened in his childhood, and that's how he got back into the mood for the scene. It's really intense stuff. I'm glad that we were able to see the inner workings of this show and kind of also get to see the intentions behind the gay man who is getting control over his own story and telling his own story. 7 more episodes to go though, so onward to episode 2, titled Give Me Something Good to Eat. It's revealed that Chucky as a young boy found razors in his apple that was part of his Halloween candy, and this might have been the spark of his madness, because instead of, not eating the apple, he fucking eats the apple. Then the relationship between Junior and his dad is explored a bit more, and we see that Jake's uncle isn't really much better.
Remind me, what's your protein intake this week?
50 grams a day.
Should bump that up to 75.
He's clearly very controlling of Junior's diet and athletics. So both brothers had been trying really hard to control who their sons would grow up to be, just in very different ways. Then we have the 3rd death of the season, or 2nd, it depends whether or not you count the cat, where Chucky pushes the maid onto the open blades in the dishwasher. Maybe one of my favorite kills of the whole season, we'll see. Then all the kids go to a Halloween party, including Chucky, who dresses up as a little trick-or-treater, which I found hilarious. They put Chucky in all these different settings that I think are so clever, because next you see him playing video games with Lexi's little sister. And at that same Halloween party, Chucky narrowly misses as he attempts to take the life of Lexi, who then proceeds to dress up as Jake's dead father, mimicking the way he died, and everyone in the party is laughing. That's crazy.
Death to all of them.
Are kids actually that mean these days? I don't feel like bullying was as big of a thing when I was in school. There is something to be said about the lengths that kids will go to today to get attention on social media, but that wasn't even an element of this scene. She was just doing it to get attention at this party and to be awful. At this point, I thought there's no way that there is a redemption arc for this girl. She's past the point of no return. She's done. But thanks to Mancini's incredible ability to subvert my expectations, that wasn't the case. I also have to point out my 2 favorite Chucky lines from this episode that were just absolutely delicious. First, we have this little exchange.
I have a queer kid.
You have a kid.
Gender fluid.
You're cool with it.
I'm not a monster, Jake.
I love how Chucky is fine with murder, but he draws the line at gender phobia. Up next would be this little line.
Killing's good, clean fun for the whole family.
Just the irony of every single word of that sentence is just mwah. But on to episode 3, I like to be hugged. Here's where the show's more subtle commentary starts to shine through, because we have Chucky who's starting to really influence Jake to kill Lexi, and he says this.
Everybody's a killer if you push him far enough.
That's a really scary thought, and it's exemplified through Junior, but we'll get to that in a bit. Anyway, Jake gets pushed to the point of quite literally hunting down Lexi with a knife, but then oops, it's Junior. Then later on, Lexi has some friends over for a silent disco where Chucky accidentally kills a boy who he thought was Lexi before attempting her life as well in this beautiful fiery crescendo. We also learn that as a very young boy, Charles witnessed someone kill his father, and when his mom took him up to the closet to hide, he kills her to help the intruder in his home, and he's like, I helped. And this is explained via my favorite line in this episode.
Some killers are made, but the best of us are born.
That's true. I think that any sane person can be pushed past the brink, but they obviously don't hold a candlestick to the born psychopaths and sociopaths of the world. Or the proper terminology would be antisocial personality disorder. And what's more horrifying to you, the fact that if your circumstances were horrible enough, you could maybe be pushed to the point of taking someone's life, or the fact that any stranger you pass in the street, or even a friend or family member, could very easily have no regard for you as a human being, and maybe they want to wear your skin. Some food for thought on to episode 4, Just Let Go. Not too much of importance happens in this episode. We're in the middle of the season, so not a whole lot going on. Lexi confronts Jake about Chucky and finds out he wanted to kill her, but this interestingly is the beginning of an unlikely alliance. We learn that Charles belonged to an orphanage and he killed the janitor and showed the kids, which is the first time in his life probably that he was trying to corrupt other kids. And the hospital hospital, Chucky kills a cop with some needles, and he kind of looks like Freddy Krueger. In the behind the scenes, Mancini said that with every rendition of the character, he tries to give Chucky a new look, which is good fun. This is a really crazy, fun new look that he got. Is it one of your favorites? I have a feeling it might be. Let me know. Devin and Lexi then share their knowledge on Chucky. Jake gets interrogated, whatever. This episode was lame. It was apparently an homage to Halloween 2 from 1981 because it takes place in a hospital, so yup. Episode 5, Little Lies. The boys are back in town, what we've probably all been waiting for. In this episode, we get to see Fiona Dourif dressed as a young Charles Lee Ray. I'm obsessed with that. But beyond her look and her movements as Charles, I am not super fond of it, and I'll tell you why. They dub Brad Dourif's voice and Jennifer Tilly's voice over these flashback scenes, and if you know anything at all about me, you know I hate dubbing. Like, I despise it.
I'm Charles.
You should be Chucky.
You know what, Tiff? You should be blonde.
It's so bizarre to be able to so obviously tell that the person who's delivering the dialogue is not the person on screen whose mouth is moving. I'm such a strong proponent of watching international films in their original language with subtitles, and then here goes Chucky just committing one of the ultimate sins in my opinion. But I think they knew that. They were kind of stuck in a tough spot because Brad Dourif and Tilly both have such iconic voices that it's like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna have these actors who come in to play the young versions of them and their voices sound nothing like them, and that would just, it'd be weird because you recognize their voices so well. So I mean, what else would they do? I don't know. But here's the thing, because it took me from being in the show, suspending my disbelief, it went threw me way out also. Did you hear my shoulder crack? Wow. And it happened so many times throughout the show in the last 4 episodes, and it's not this actress's fault, but she has none of Jennifer Tilly's energy. At least with Fiona, she did say that she went to her dad because she wanted to get a sense of his movements and everything, but he told her, I'm 71, I don't move the same, you're gonna have to go back and watch some of the older films, which she did. Anyways, tensions arise as Junior becomes suspicious of the new relationship between Lexi and Jake. Then the kids team up and they think they've killed the doll, but of course we as audience members know that that can't possibly be true, so nice little dramatic irony there. And Jake and Devin have their first kiss. It's so cute how awkward and realistic it is. And ooh, I almost lost it when Mancini revealed his true intentions with that scene. He said that he wishes that that's how his first kiss played out. Hit me in all the feels. Then we have Jennifer Tilly and Fiona Dourif back as Tiffany and Chucky, and oh, it's so good. We get a little bit of this.
My mother always told me.
And it's like dipping into a warm bath of nostalgia. But the opening scene with them is really spicy. They're like making out on the bed. And in the behind the scenes, both of them were interviewed together and they were like, yeah, the first time we kissed, we actually had quite a lot of chemistry. It was fine, it was nice.
It felt very natural.
It felt very natural. We had a lot of chemistry.
We have a lot of chemistry, lots.
Cute. And then the climax of this episode is in the auditorium of the school where the principal is revealed dead, and I knew exactly what was gonna happen as soon as Heads Will Roll started playing. And sure enough, out rolls her head. Gotta love the on-the-nose soundtrack and how it contributes to the tongue-in-cheek kind of humor of the show. Onward we go to episode 6, Cape Queer. We open this episode and it's Andy and Kyle, yes. They're on a mission to eliminate the entire cult of Chucky, so they masquerade as census takers and ask for kids to count their dolls for the census. I thought that there simply could not be a more clever way to reintroduce them to the franchise. That made me very happy. We also get to see the origin of how Chucky and Tiffany get their iconic car. In this episode, things also get complicated between Tiffany and Nika because Nika keeps popping back out, which Tiffany actually prefers, but she has a funny way of showing it. It's really interesting to see all the different versions of Fiona in this show. She plays a young Charles Lee Ray, she plays Nika trying to play Chucky, and then Chucky trying to play Nika. Anyway, we also get maybe the most intense death of the show where Chucky pushes Junior's mom out the window. It was so dramatic and not really in the same style as the rest of the franchise, because we usually see Chucky doing people in with his own hands. And when her face went through the windshield, a la Carrie 2013, I can't really show either of those things. That was kind of over the top, like that was kind of crazy. But the episode is not over yet because the kids go hunt down Chucky. He tries to corrupt Lexi. Devin tases Chucky, which is awesome, by the way. And then Chucky kills Devin's mom. I was was really sad about that. Like, none of these kids are gonna have a single parent. At this point though, we're almost there, folks. Episode 7, twice the grieving and double the loss. At his aunt's funeral, Jake gets dumped and punched, and Tiffany comes to stir up some trouble. Andy is also on his way to Hackensack to put an end to Chucky, and he leaves Kyle at a gas station trying to keep her safe, I suppose. Chucky seems to convince Junior to kill Jake, and then Tiffany basically confirms she was having an affair with his dad, which wasn't true, but this pushes Junior to eventually turn his dad into past tense. And we get a lot of really fun cinematography in this scene. There's this moment where he falls against the wall and the camera follows his movement. There's also this POV shot where Chucky is being used to beat his dad. And in the final scene, it's revealed that there is a big ass cult of Chucky dolls lined up and ready to go. I think that was a great lead up to the finale because it was like, holy cow, Junior has just done this.
I can't believe you've done this.
So it's like, where do we go from here? And what are all of those Chuckies gonna do? Well, we're gonna find out. Episode 8, An Affair to Dismember. First, Andy comes to see Junior, who low-key thinks about killing him. Lexi and Jake are then confronted by Chucky, who is shot in the head by Kyle. Go Kyle. Then Chucky's old home is revealed, and they're sort of Michael Myersing Chucky a bit by ascribing a bit more meaning to his childhood home. Now it's his headquarters, and we see his army of Chuckies that's awakened, and this is music to my ears right here. Gotta love the Chucky choir. Chucky also almost convinces Junior to kill Nika, but then Tiffany kills Chucky because she likes Nika. Nika is nice. Also, confirmation that Glenda is a they.
My darling Glenda gave it to me. They have exquisite taste.
Love it or hate it, Seed of Chucky was ahead of its time, what can I say? Andy also comes and saves Devin, but oh no, an explosion. But don't worry, literally everybody got out just fine. Then at the mayor's benefit, it's revealed the Chuckies will be shipped across the country, which I don't know why that's not where my mind went. I just assumed, oh yeah, they finally have an actual cult of Chucky. They're just gonna run around during this season finale and there's gonna be a bunch of Chuckies killing people. But the scale to which Chucky wants to fuck shit up is much larger. He wants to corrupt enough youth across America to create an army. Then Junior tries to convince Lexi to join him, but it's one of those moments where he's talked down and sees the light, but oh no, too late. Bye bye, Junior. I wasn't that sad, but at any point of this show when a child would die, it was hard to watch, especially because unlike Scream, where all those actors were in their 20s, these were actual kids that we were watching being killed. Then a Chucky spree drives people out of the theater, and Chucky. Wow. And Jake confronts him and gets real kinky by choking him out against the wall. And we conclude the season by Andy driving the truck full of toys out of the city, only to be confronted by doll Tiffany. Bum bum bum. And one of the final images that we see is poor Nika, who has been deprived of all of her limbs so she can be Tiffany's pet forever. Like, wow, talk about a mic drop. Talk about a wow. Also in the end, it's cute. Chucky does a kill count of the whole season, which I guess makes Dead Meat's job obsolete. To be honest, I wasn't that blown away by the season finale because number one, I didn't get what I wanted, which was to see all of the Chuckies running around causing destruction. And number two, I hate the ending with Nika. I don't think they should have taken it to that extreme yet on the ending of season 1 because now she's basically a vegetable. Before, even though she was in a wheelchair, she still managed to fight her way out and be the final girl of Curse of Chucky. Now what's she gonna do? She's been completely incapacitated, which I just find kind of boring because where can Nika's character go? Physically, not very far, but a piece of Chucky is still in her and that could have been utilized in a myriad of ways. We never got to see him released into the community as Nika. I wanted to see him deceiving people and committing murders under this guise. I think there were a lot of fun routes they could go with that. So honestly, I wouldn't even be mad if in season 2 they retconned that ending by making it a dream that Nika had. But we'll see. And obviously with my other gripe with the ending, I know that they don't want to put all of their cards out on the table just yet because they want to get a season 2. Also logistically, having that many Chuckies running around with the budget and all the puppeteers they would need, I get it. I get why that didn't happen. So I accept the open-endedness of the ending of the season. I really can't wait to see where it goes from here. I think it's only gonna get better. My overall thoughts with the show, you already know that I didn't love it, but I really enjoyed the story. I just had gripes with some of the acting. As for the the dubbing, I won't get over that. I'm sorry, I'm gonna complain about that every single time. Because what would have been less jarring to me, actually, is if they just used CGI to age Jennifer Tilly down to make her look younger, and they wouldn't have even needed to do that much. It's not like she's aging super visibly, but I'll stop complaining about that for now. Overall, I am very happy as a fan of the franchise with the show, and also as just like a TV fan in general. But that about does it. How do you feel about the very first season of Chucky? Let me know all your thoughts down below. Also, a big thank you to all of my patrons. Here are your kisses. If you didn't notice, there are a few new names on the list this month, so thank you. I appreciate the support. Other than that, I want to remind you to go subscribe to Slasher Pepper because we have an insane collab coming out soon on his channel. I hope that you remember to relax, drink some water, and that killing is good, clean fun for the whole family. Bye!